We have followed the Tibetan Book of the Dead through the intermediate state between death and rebirth. But that is ancient wisdom. Do we have more recent insights into reincarnation? Yes, we have. Meet Dr. Brian Weiss, psychiatrist and hypnotherapist based in Miami, and Dr. Michael Newton, a psychologist and hypnotherapist based in Northern California. They were not seeking insights into reincarnation. Their insight came, as many great insights do, by accident and quite independently. Here's what happened with Dr. Weiss. Dr. Weiss was very scientifically oriented. He knew nothing about reincarnation, and frankly, he wasn't interested. But then came a very troubled patient. Call her Catherine. Catherine suffered from fears, phobias, paralyzing panic attacks, depression, and recurrent nightmares. She was worsening despite the efforts of other therapists. Typical medications didn't work, so Dr. Weiss tried hypnotherapy. Catherine was able to enter a deep hypnotic trance state. Dr. Weiss was encouraged. She was able to recall 3 childhood traumas, so Dr. Weiss was confident she would get better. But she didn't. In their next session, Dr. Weiss changed his instructions slightly, or so he thought. With Catherine in a deep hypnotic trance, he gave her a direction that was too open-ended. Go back to the time from which your symptoms arise. She went back beyond early childhood. In fact, she went back about 4,000 years into a lifetime in the ancient Near East, recalling details from that life, including her dying, which she described in a way very much like a near-death experience. What's going on here? Dr. Weiss wondered. If that wasn't enough, Catherine bounced from the memory of that lifetime into her life as a prostitute in 18th century Spain, and from there, back again, 3,000 years, into her life in ancient Greece. Dr. Weiss didn't know what to make of this, but Catherine's symptoms improved dramatically. However, Dr. Weiss had even more astonishing surprises in store for him. Catherine began speaking not only from earlier lifetimes, but from the time after death and before rebirth, like the near-death experiences we have talked about. But you see, Catherine had passed into that light from which there is no return to the physical body. Catherine revealed to Dr. Weiss the transition, a process very much like that described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. In their 4th or 5th session, as Catherine floated in the in-between lifetime state, her voice changed, and she spoke to Dr. Weiss of long-dead members of his family that Catherine had no knowledge of. "Who?" Dr. Weiss sputtered. "Who is there? Who tells you these things?" "The masters," she whispered. "The master spirits tell me." From Catherine and from several of his other patients, Dr. Weiss learned that in the transition, the life between lives, souls are guided by masters, spiritually advanced souls who teach patience and compassion. Souls also appear to travel through various lives in groups, kindred spirits, so to speak, perhaps including a particular soulmate who reappears in different lives in close relation to the subject's soul. And yet, the role relationship of those kindred spirits may change, even become opposite from one life to another, including switching genders. While Dr. Weiss was discovering all these surprising things through his patients in Miami, all the way across the country, Dr. Michael Newton, psychologist and hypnotherapist, was making similar discoveries of his own, especially into the transition and the life between lives. Dr. Newton described an orderly process of healing and spiritual development in the life between lives. First, a homecoming, when the newly dead soul is greeted by familiar spirits, a soulmate, or perhaps a guide. Next, an orientation. Similar to the life review we learned of in near-death experiences. This is less like a judgment than like a medical examination whose purpose is to evaluate what the soul needs to heal and to grow. Then comes a transition that Newton describes as large numbers of returning souls conveyed in a spiritual form of mass transit, like a vast crowded metropolitan airport without waiting lines, or, as one patient said, the hub of a great wagon wheel where we are transported from the center along the spokes to our designated places. Souls are placed in cluster groups, usually of kindred spirits, and cluster groups are gathered into supporting groups. The soul's level of spiritual development determines the group assignment. Clusters and supporting groups are like schools, where advanced spirits, like Dr. Weiss's masters, instruct and guide. Newton describes 3 basic levels. Beginner souls, both young souls and those who have remained immature through several lives. These souls are quite dependent on their spiritual guides. Intermediate souls, mature enough to be more independent and to develop the capacity to become guides themselves. Then advanced or old souls, themselves guides, who had returned to the physical state. These are relatively rare on Earth. Some might call them saints. There comes that time when the soul must once again leave the sanctuary of the spirit world for another trip to Earth. Aided by guiding spirits, the soul considers, am I ready to return to physical life? What specific learning should I achieve in this next human life? Where should I go, and who shall I be in my next life for the best opportunity to work on my goals? Then, aided by the most advanced spirit, the soul chooses its new life and returns to the physical state. We've been talking about souls, but what is a soul? Dr. Weiss speaks of soul as energy and as love. Where might those hints lead? Remember the wisdom of the Buddha. Impermanent are all component things. They arise and cease, that is their nature. They come into being and pass away. Release from them is bliss supreme. Our conscious minds live in a world of appearances. Solid objects, a firm earth to stand on, reliable patterns of light for us to see and sound for us to hear, and our own more or less solid bodies. Yet we know that appearances are deceiving. From physics and biology, we know that apparently solid objects are really masses of swirling atoms. Our bodies, too, at the cellular level, are in a constant process of decay and renewal. What then remains constant amid all this flow? Constant but not inert. Energy? Love? We can find another hint in music. In a jazz piece, for instance, what's happening that resonates so much within us? Music is sound waves, vibrations in balanced relationship, and vibrations are streams of interweaving energy. Stand upon the earth, and perhaps you can practically feel the plants stretching to greet the sun, the winds carrying pollen, the waters flowing, the clouds overhead, and even the usually delicate electric tension between earth and sky. Vast interdependent currents of energy. Look within. Yes, we know that our conscious mind is really just the outer surface. Beneath that is the subconscious, buried memories, forgotten lessons, and perhaps even deeper unconscious tendencies, almost like instincts. But even deeper, at the very core, is what Dr. Newton calls the superconscious. That superconscious, Newton believes, is what has remained constant upon life, life upon life, that has paused between lives to assess and to grow, and that is seeking to reach its perfect realization, pure, loving energy. Newton believes that superconscious, that indestructible core of energy seeking perfect love, is the soul within each of us. So he believes. So together, might we actually be the love that moves the sun and the other stars? In our exploration, we arrive once again at questions. Yes, there is evidence of past life memories, and Dr. Weiss strongly affirms the effectiveness of regression therapy, reaching back into past lives to really resolve current life issues. Yet the evidence is anecdotal, falling short of what can count as scientifically convincing. Further, unlike near-death experiences, there has been no decades-long critical examination of reincarnation claims. So our explorations lead us again to answer that question. What comes next with we don't know? But aren't the possibilities fascinating?